G'day, my name's Chris Anderson and welcome to the Ando & Co podcast. Today I'm really excited to be sitting down with pretty much the whole team from Aether Brewing. So I've got Dave, who's the owner of Aether, George, who's the head brewer, and Rich, who is the sales and marketing manager. Guys, what can you tell us about yourself?
Well, we might as well start way back in 2014 when the idea first came out of wanting to own a brewery, and I was working for an engineering company called PowerTech at the time, and I'd gotten into a bit of trouble and I was pretty restless and I was sick of office and managerial life, and I was in, I guess it was the prompt for me to pursue what was a lifelong dream. Like, I was just sick of it all, and I was, I have this thing, a bit of ADHD and stuff, and if I get bored, I start to get pretty destructive. So I was running a bit of a mark, got in a bit of trouble with my, my managing director at the time, and that's when it kind of all came out that that's it. I'm sick of this life, and I'm going to jump headfirst into brewing. And it was in that conversation that it came up about Aether. When my MD and I were talking about it, he goes, "That's okay, just put that out, the Aether for now, and let's finish this." And he looked at me and said, "That's a great name for a brewery." And it just kind of stuck from there. So that was a long time before we actually got the brewery together. So that was kind of when I went, I want to start working towards this. And then I met Jimmy out in the oil and gas fields in probably 2015, so not too long after, closing out a project there. And then, so Jimmy and I became really good friends. The floods I ended up staying with him during the floods while my unit got flooded and all the rest of the good stuff. But we became really good friends, and he's just a people person. He was born to be a publican. So we got talking about it all, the project and everything, and decided that we were going to jump into it together. So we're going to start a brew pub. I'll look after the brewing, he looks after the venue. And then so 2016 is when we actually launched the brew pub. Lots of really long weeks and nights getting that prepared. We were on a shoestring budget and we blew that out like 10 times over. Luckily,
case, right?
Absolutely always the case. Luckily, family were there to help us out and get us through that, so we could at least get open and trading. And then, from there, we kind of realised how much beer people actually drink, and also how slim the margins are in brewing. So, there's not a lot of fat in it. So we realised that if we're ever going to make any money, we have to produce more beer and get people to buy more beer. So the little 500 litre brew kit just wasn't cutting it. We ended up commissioning a brew house for our friend Ryan McLeod up at Mullaney. Mm-hmm. And then so I'd spend my weeks, I would brew on the 500 litre brew house. Then the next day I'd leave at sort of 4 o'clock in the afternoon, get up there at 5 because you couldn't run the brew house the same time as the kitchen. Mm-hmm. So get up there for when they shut the kitchen down so that I could fire the HLT and get prep for brewing and brew all through the night. Watch the sunrise come up over the mountains, which was like the nice bit about it. Yeah. But I mean, honestly, like, it was tough going. That would like 20 hour days. Yeah. And I'd do that 2 or 3 days a week there and then brew down here. It was a wild time. I look back on it now and I can't even do, a 16-hour day without hurting for another 2 days afterwards. I don't know how I did it, but I think it's just one of those things, you're so passionate and you love what you do so much, you just don't think about it. And it was, it got us to where we are now, and I definitely wouldn't change a thing, would still do that. So Jimmy was looking after the venue and I was brewing like a lunatic. And so we realized that, again, we couldn't produce enough up there, and the conditions weren't ideal. So, we put together planning for this place. And it was about that time that we realized, as we were warned about through all our business relationship together, is that don't go into business with your best friend. Yeah. And of course, we were always really flippant about it. We were like, there's no fucking way it's going to happen to us. Sorry about the language. We're better than everyone else. This isn't going to happen to us. But it did. And, it really came down to the fact that when we started working on the big brewery, my focus was on the big brewery and brewing, and his focus was on the venue and running the venue. and we just started to clash in between. So we did what we had to do, and went our own ways. So that's it's true what they say about going into business with your best friend.
Yeah.
Business divorce is real. It's extremely common.
Yeah, it is really common, and it wasn't until after we went through it, like literally anyone in their late 40s who'd owned a business or been in business had a story about going into business with their best friend and how it went. So
I can't even split a carton with arguing over who drank how many beers.
Yeah, but we both got something out of it. He's got his business and I've got my business now, and no one lost out too much. It was hard. He was the best man at my wedding and stuff. It was hard to lose a friend over it, but it's a lesson of life. But from there,
building, right?
Exactly. And so from there, it was like, that's it. Brewing is all I want to do. I have no interest in running a venue. I have no interest in having a kitchen. Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm not exactly a people person. I don't get inspired to go out and hang out with lots and lots of people. I like my crew, small and intimate. But yeah, I'm not a crowd person, and I'm definitely not a publican. Yeah. So then brewing became the thing, and Mick, who's one of our brewers on the floor at the moment, he came across with me. So he was working behind the bar there, but he was like my first assistant brewer / brewer, which was very exciting. And we had a very small team, but we just kept brewing beer, and it got better and better. Started winning a few awards, lots of gold medals and stuff, which was great. Started to build the brand. Which I think we'll get onto in a little bit, the brand itself and its evolution and strange places. But we just really focused on beer, and that grew. The team grew, sales grew. George came on 2.5 years ago as the head brewer.
Oh yeah.
That was an interesting story in itself. But
brewer to start out as, but grew into the role.
Yeah. So we got a random email from George, and George was living in Denmark at the time. It was like, I've got my master's in food science, and I currently work for Carlsberg, and I was like, this dude's full of shit. This is 100% a scam. People like this just don't fall into your lap. This is ridiculous. But after a few phone calls and Skype chats and stuff, I was like, oh my goodness, I was like, get over here, get over here and come work with us. And I just couldn't imagine doing what we do now without George. And then, what is it, like a year and a half ago now? Rich came on as basically a contractor at the time. But then, really quickly grew into the role. And just like with George, I couldn't imagine doing what we do without Rich. And it's, as we get bigger and as we sell more beer and the brand becomes bigger, I am not good enough in all the areas to have continued running it myself.
Only 70 hours of the day.
Yeah. So it's that thing. I always wanted to be a brewer my whole life. I'm no longer a brewer. I run a brewery. That was a very valuable lesson, but we need the team. The team grows, and I get a little bit more distant from all the things that I was intimate with, but I adore what I do, and the 16 staff we have now are exceptional, and that's my whole job now, is to, besides looking after money and stuff, but is to keep the 16 staff we have happy, and keep them focusing and feeling the passion and love for beer and what we do and the brand.
And George, how did you hear about Aether all the way over in Denmark?
Oh man, so I found myself living in Denmark with my partner, and she knew that she wanted to go back to school, and she got accepted down to UQ down here. So I found myself saying, well, we've already moved to a country we've never been to once, let's do it again. I had a couple chats around town. The chat that I had particularly with Dave, and just seeing the direction that he wanted to take the company, because this was very close to just after the split. And just seeing how Dave said he wants to grow to this size in this amount of time, and he wants to do this and that and this, it was just kind of a no-brainer. And like Dave said, we had a couple chats, and they were just really good conversations that we had. So, you know, before I had even come down here, it seemed like, you know, it was just kind of meant to be. Came down here and, like, yeah, this is a real operation that, you know, we're just going to get kicked off on the ground with. I mean, my first year here, we did, like 160,000 liters?
Yeah.
And now this year, we're going to push about 700.
Wow.
700,000?
Yeah.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, as an aspiring, you know, as I'm beginning my career out in brewing, you'd be ridiculous to look at an opportunity like this and say no to that. That's just fantastic, and, you know, just coming in the team and just getting to know everybody and working with everybody. It's a fantastic team we've assembled here.
I don't know how we've done it, but we've done it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just everybody looks out for each other. That's just the beautiful part of everything. You know, especially with the challenges of, you know, owning a business and on my behalf, even just operating a brewery in the midst of COVID and floods.
It's been a wild last 2 years.
First they had the bees and the dogs, and next
And that's
it's
just the disaster. Like,
That's
before
right,
that,
yeah.
It's just like the grind and the struggle of
I think
creating something.
I think that was the thing, right? When you came across 2.5 years ago, you were so excited about traveling Australia and seeing all the sites and stuff.
Yeah.
But like the first, what did you get, like 3 months or 4 months before lockdown?
Yeah.
And ever since then, you know, obviously taking on the head brewer role and stuff, times a little bit more difficult, but not been a lot of travel yet.
Your partner Nat,
Just been
she's
travel.
get there.
is she an ecologist or something, or she's something to do with nature? I don't remember. So George always seems to be going on some sweet
doing her
camping trip to
doctorate in
do.
environmental science.
Yeah, and conservation science.
Conservation science,
So
They always take a trip,
Save
yeah.
the animals and whatnot. Yeah, we just got back from a trip that I saw too many snakes and too many creek crossings for my liking. But just seeing the country and, you know, again, I had never been to Australia. I've been to the Southern Hemisphere once my entire life before, and that was 2 weeks in Bali. So, you know, just talk about going somewhere and having absolutely no clue what to expect, and I'm just super grateful that I wound up here.
Yeah.
It's been a fantastic
So
ride
we, mate.
ever since I got here. Yeah.
And you mentioned from the outset it was all about the beer. How did you go about selecting those first beers that you'd brewed? And,
Yeah.
And how's it grown since then?
It's grown in leaps and bounds. Back when Jimmy and I first decided that, you know, we're in planning now. We've got some budgets. Again, they were not nearly what we needed, but that's a whole other story. But we've got some budgets, so we bought this little pilot kit, and we had it down the back of this old dodgy shopping arcade in Ashgrove, and we just called it the lab. It was this little 50-litre pilot kit in this little dodgy cold room in this little dodgy room. With lots of spiders and shit. Yeah, it's just classic Queensland. But yeah, so we started brewing on that. So basically moving away from all my home brew setups and into something had temperature control, fermenters and things like that we needed to be able to start researching recipes.
And just how different was that, even just to begin with, you know? Just switching from homebrewing to something that's a professional setup.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, the beers were still really average. I mean, I look back at, my earliest childhood memories are with Dad brewing on the farm, in the laundry, and he used to make this really horrible stout from extract. He used to put so much white sugar in it. Him and his friends used to drink it with Diet Coke. It was that bad. And then would fill up the Diet Coke bottles with stout again. It was this really it was fun. So I look back as that. Yeah, that was the worst beer I've ever had. And I think I was just adamant about always making better beer than Dad, which was very easy. By the way. You can have an infected batch. You just like, fuck, it's so much better than that stout. But yeah, so moving to that pilot kit, which was much more professional. Had
was
lots
the one
of
in
control.
Ashgrove?
It was the one in Ashgrove. Yeah.
We still deal with those legends.
Yeah, the
You
ones
know?
up from us. Yep.
Yeah, where Dave first started brewing, in Ashgrove there. Upstairs is a little bar, an awesome bistro called the Local Larder, run by a dude called Mark, and they sell our beers and they do a great job. So
Awesome.
Yeah,
That's
that's
nice,
in the
doesn't
little
it?
arcade.
Yeah,
That's
full
at-
circle.
Yeah, that's at the front of the arcade. Yeah. And then so we bought on like focus groups and stuff. Like we'd just be like, we'd reach out on Facebook and social media and stuff and be like, hey, who wants to come and join us? And we'll give you a growler or a beer. Just let us know what you think of it. And I mean, we thought the beers were great. But when we sort of opened the brew pub, the beers weren't super. You know, learning commercial brewing and having not studied yet, that was a steep learning curve because I realized how much I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when I realized that, I think that was when I just went, right, this is like a lifelong dedication now. This is how I will spend my life now and probably die with this passion and learning about beer, and I'll continue that. I think that people were really allowing of us, and they offered us lots of leeway back then because we were one of only 3 or 4 craft breweries in Brisbane. There's Newstead, All In, Black Hops had just opened up down the coast, Green Beacon, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But I look back now and I think if a brewery opened with those beers, I think they'd go out of business pretty fucking quickly. And I might be being overly critical on myself, I'm not sure, but we got lots of leeway, like lots of beers I look back on and go, I didn't know my shit then.
The community's pretty rad here in Brizzy, but in a lot of craft beer communities, I suppose. So
absolutely,
and people want to support small business, not just now because of COVID, I suppose, and everything that everyone's been through. But they get behind you and they support you and also contact you if you stuff up
that's right.
there.
I think because we were just like 2 friends just having a fucking crack and we didn't really know what we were doing. Jimmy had never worked in hospitality before, and I'd never commercially brewed before, and we were just getting we're not the worst people, so I think that kind of helped. Like people were pretty allowing.
Unfortunately, people's palates probably weren't that refined.
Well, I don't think so either. That's absolutely right.
I've worked in countries where people were drinking just bulk infected beers, and they're like, this is amazing. I don't know what it's supposed to taste like, which is great.
But I'd knowing I have my name on those beers back then, I feel a little embarrassed. But knowing what we do now, I'm not so much. You know what I mean? Like knowing where it led us, and we have this really nice lab with lots of really nice equipment, and we have lots of toys that help us be better, and we have lots of processes in the brewery that George and I have nutted out over time that other people don't do or they brag about, but jokingly for us, every batch is like that. You know what I mean? It's like, double dry hopping and stuff. We've done that for the last, 3 years, 4 years.
But it's beautiful that it's not just these dudes using nice equipment to make them better. Obviously super passionate and they buck trends and they do whatever the hell they want to do. And we try and do obviously a bit for everybody, but one of the things I love about this spot is that sort of forging our own path, and making some pretty crazy beers, which is cool.
And trying not to be rock stars about it. We just do what we do it really well, and let the beer speak for itself.
And to be fair, I'd never tried a bad beer at Aether.
At
either venue.
So. Yeah.
Good to hear.
So, and then just moving forward, so the focus now is more on brewing more beer, getting out there into stores and whatnot, being a distribution brewery.
Yes.
Obviously done a massive amount of litres this year. When did you start having a look at the brand and how you started to adapt that to suit the market?
Yeah, I mean, that's been a tough one because before we knew it, we had this really gothic theme. And that was like before we even knew it. Like even back when we first started with the labels and stuff, neither Jimmy and I, guys, neither him or I. Like, we both loved metal and stuff, but neither him or I are particularly dark souled people. Not in a negative way, but just we didn't really have that vibe about us. But we just kind of ended up with it going, "Fuck, this is pretty cool." And that's the way, like the whole brand and the whole way, all the cans just ended up in this manner is because
without a plan, you did it really well.
Yeah, so it all took on this style, and while I have embraced it, it's I don't know how much further it'll go before we have to change it up a little bit. Yeah, just it's beautiful and we love it, but it's also very it's quite closed off in what we can do because it all contains skeletons and skulls, and I mean Chaotic Good's probably one of the scariest cans on the fucking market, and it's our mid-strength beer that's supposed to appeal to everybody. You know what I mean? It's a Grim Reaper with a sith of hot flowers is Well, I love it. It's not exactly. It doesn't exactly speak to the masses.
Art is incredible.
Yeah,
we're really lucky to work with some really great people.
Absolutely. Shout out to Steve Falco, who's worked with us from day one back in the lab. You know, he did our original labels for us, and he still works with us now. And of course, Demographics, Emery, who's been the same.
Just freaks. Yeah, there's a lot of really talented people, but I mean, some of those core elements, you know, they're cool cans. You know, they pop on the shelf. You know, that's the sort of that's the starting point, isn't it? Right, and then you just want someone to pick up your beer, and like I said, without a plan, but with some pretty talented people, it came up pretty damn good.
Well, it's also another reason to talk about the brand. Like, oh, have you seen these cans? How cool is this?
Yeah.
Like, oh, some people aren't doing much for their can art, but every time I see cans from Aether, there's something cool and along a similar theme.
Yeah. So, I mean, it comes at a cost. So, if you go to printed cans, and we've gone to printed cans on these, but they're still limiting. Like, the quality of them, it doesn't pop as much as a label. And labels are expensive. You know, we're talking 22 cents per can just for the label.
Yeah, right.
It adds up, really, really quickly. But the detail is nice and the texture's nice.
It's something that we've been pretty well known for a while, is those unreal, like matte sort of textured labels. And so it's been a tiny bit heartbreaking, like, but also like, to lose those labels on most of the products. But at the same time, like, economies of scale, if we want to be competitive on pricing, and sure, we don't necessarily produce as many litres as some of the big boys, but we've got to try and be more competitive and try and reduce our costs in order to, you know, be able to hit a price point that people are pretty keen on paying for their beer. But we're lucky that it's not just, you know, a bunch of pretty cans. You know, it's the quality of the juice inside of these tinnies is unreal. So.
And we've spoken a little bit about the can art, but what are we all drinking, and what can you tell us about it?
Oh, nice. So I'm drinking one of my all-time favourites, and it's probably one of the first sours we did, but Witching Hour Blackberry Sour. It's been a cracker. It's like one of our first fruited sours. The first ever sour that we did was Berliner Weiss. It was awful. And then we did another Berliner Weiss, and it came out beautifully. And then we were like, let's chuck some fruit in it. It was blackberry, because that was what was available at the time. And we hadn't seen much of it out in the market. And it's become a core staple beer that, you know, we're quite well known for. And it's one of those things I think people in the industry are quite respectful of it as well. I think because it is one of those beers that have been around for a long time. We don't see too many blackberry beers blackberry sours put on the market when there probably should be more. So I think people are really respectful of the beer and the quality of it, which is why people don't tend to play in the blackberry space, which is nice. But I mean, it's always been a cracker. It's just designed to drink on a hot day. 3.9%, so it's nice and low on the booze. It's one of the great opening beers or great hangover beers, opening or finishing beers. Either way, that's my choice.
And George, what have you got there?
I was digging into a Chaotic Good, which is our mid-strength Pilsner. We really just wanted to highlight, this is one of Dave's old recipes. We just wanted to really celebrate, you know, the hops that you could find over in New Zealand with this beer. Also giving you like a really strong, full-bodied mid-strength beer. We just didn't want to be like every other midi out there that's just crushable. Just, you know, give the opportunity to somebody to crack that tin and just say, oh my God, there's really something behind this. Like, I can really respect the quality that's been put into this beer.
For midi, it's exceptional. Like,
sometimes this is my go-to.
Oh, hell yeah.
Easy.
I mean, that Grim Reaper, the detail that Falco put into that is unreal.
It is unreal,
bad to the bone, but it's a midi as well. So we want to be approachable for some of the good old boys as well, so that sometimes it might be a little bit of a piece about marginalisation, but that's okay. But, I mean, when it comes to midis, I know like most brewers have probably got something, but that beer is nuts. It is so damn tasty. It's ridiculous, you know.
I love that Trimble Bowls had it on for quite a while. There was all the old boy locals down there smashing, you know, schooners and pints of Chaotic Good, and you know, it was on the deck and everything. But yeah, that made me happy.
Pumping. There's a bunch of really good clubs in particular as well, like Baden Bowls. Heaves through that before the floods.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But there's a lot of clubs that support that beer, and a lot of, you know, really premium restaurants and all sorts of different spots. It's exceptional. I suppose, you know, people are so used to, because of some of the majors, you know, dropping their middies for dirt cheap prices on 30 blocks and the like. People used to paying, less for a midi. But if people are willing to be open to spending a couple more bucks, they can find out that there can be real flavour in a midi. Compare that to anything else, and I'd love to hear what people think, because it's exceptional.
It's nice to be driving somewhere but still be able to drink something tasty. It's not just a flattened lager or a pilsner that has no flavour. It has flavour and it's low alcohol. Go to town.
And that's the whole point of it, right? It was so when people put it into a glass, you'd have no idea it was a mid-strength. You would swear it was full. That was the whole point. The body's there, the texture's there, the hops there, the malt carries it nicely. The yeast characters from the lager yeast is nice. You'd swear it was full strength, which is what we wanted to do.
A lot of people try and achieve that, but
Rich, what have you got there?
An empty can of Deep Space Haze, our hazy pale. I think it was just before my time. The guys did it as a limited release back a couple of years ago. It was a wet hop that went nuts. One of the themes that we sort of run, I suppose, on our artwork, we're not doing skulls and bad to the bone bits and pieces, is the space sort of theme. So it originally had some rad space branding, and it went nuts, but obviously wet hops aren't something that we can run all the time. So it just went so nuts, like sort of before hazies were doing a lot in Australia, particularly hazy pales, I suppose. And we just figured, hey, the numbers are too good in terms of sales. People love this beer, so let's keep it around. So the guys started playing around with the recipe, and it has evolved like a fair bit, even up until a month ago, I reckon. So many different bits and pieces that have changed that have been exciting to sort of work our way through. Some of them have been hurdles as well, but
I think we had a few clear batches.
This is
when we were trying to work on
to get this one nailed
I
down.
think so too.
Definitely.
Like trying to get the yeast profile right.
So we're super grateful for all of our supporters, our community, that's sort of been a little bit patient with us on that. But it's just a ridiculously good beer. Like, I mean, as a consumer, I love beer and I love juice. I don't necessarily want my beer to taste like juice, though. I don't want people to be pouring a truckload of tropical juice in there or using too much lactose or anything like that. So we had this really nice balance whereby it was juicy enough because of those hops that the boys were cooking up, and at the same time it had a nice little bitterness to it, so it suited my palate really well. I know it's super selfish but when you can talk passionately, I suppose, about a beer, people are usually pretty willing to listen and at least try it and make up their own minds. But I think you guys done a really good job, and like they said, this latest batch is the best I've ever had, and pretty confident we're going to keep it exactly the way it is for
we've
2
nailed
years,
it at this point.
2 years of yeast work to get to this point.
Use this yeast. It's supposed to make your beer hazy.
It does the opposite.
Clarifies it 3 weeks after we put it in the keg.
Again, so grateful for everyone's patience.
Absolutely, I mean, because it's hard, and so we don't put out beer that we're not super proud of and intensely proud and would be proud to put our name on it. But we see these things down the track, and when it comes to haze in a beer, it's hard, because are we going to put 3,000 litres of beer that we've canned 3 weeks before down the drain or destroy it because it's not quite hazy enough?
So everything else off site and watch it for months. We would turn money over to keep this thing alive.
To be fair, which we've done. We
have
have dumped batches that have gone clear.
But
when you open a Deep Space Haze, you're expecting haze.
That's right. But when it comes to subtle qualities like that don't affect quality or taste, it's a really tough call. And obviously, if it was anything else, it'd be gone without a question. If there's any oxidation, if there's any other issue, it's without a question. It's gone. We wear the cost of it. It's
massively heartbreaking when that happens.
Of course,
and it does. And it
absolutely,
does.
it still does.
We run dozens of lab tests on all of our beers that we're putting out, and if any of them we're just not happy with, and if it's not something that we can actually control and make better, we're pretty hard about it's going down the drain.
Fortunately, it doesn't happen very often.
No,
not anymore.
No.
No, I've done a few batches in my time.
About 6 months.
Yeah.
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 And that was actually a deep space that went clear.
Yeah.
So.
What are you drinking, Chris?
Well, yeah, it's nice to come into a brewery, and I've tried most of the range. So when I looked at these Fuzzy Logic seltzers, so I went, I probably should give this a try. So I've got the passion fruit Pavlova seltzer. It tastes exactly like passion fruit Pavlova. And I'm drinking it out of the can, but it's not necessarily clear either. It's a little bit creamy. I think probably creaming soda, if you think that sort of colour. It's probably close to that. And yeah, it's very easy drinking. Again, if I was hungover, I'd happily grab one of these, and this would be my drink of choice. Or it's a good starter, just like a sour would be, or a lager, or whatever.
That's exactly what we aim for on our seltzers, right? Is just nice, light, real flavor. Just keep it real, keep it full.
Real fruit.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We add crazy amounts of real fruit to both of our seltzers. So we have the passion fruit Pavlova one, real passion fruit in there. We also have the raspberry seltzer, and again, it's just heaps of raspberry that we chuck into that on every batch. And it's got passion fruit Pavlova, just that real cloudy, creamy, mellow yellow. Looks like a Pavlova, right? And the raspberry seltzer, just beautiful ruby red, just beautiful, clear.
Looks stunning in a
Love
glass.
it.
Yeah.
We ferment them bone dry, so we take it down to negative in terms of gravity. So undetectable amounts of sugar in them, so like 0 grams of sugar. Still some carbs, obviously, because of the alcohol, but they're very clean drinks.
A little bit of fruit.
A little bit of fibre,
a bit of the fibre will stay behind.
But overall, like in terms of sugar and stuff, and obviously gluten free.
I actually remember back in my clubbing days. Back in my clubbing days, I was at Family Nightclub and got introduced to vanilla vodka passion fruit lemonade.
Classic.
This is very similar.
Is it?
To
Yeah,
this.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Never heard
Yeah.
of it.
So again, that was just at the time was something that was cool for me.
Yeah.
But this is a bit of a throwback to those days.
Man, those seltzers, and the last thing I want to say about them is like how proud I am of what we've done. Like, yeah, they're not a massive focus for us as a business, but obviously the seltzer market went mental, particularly during COVID, I suppose, over in the States, and then everyone got on board all over the world. But again, something I'm so proud of about what the guys have been able to do, what the team's been able to do is put our own spin on it. There's not a lot of products out there in the seltzer game, particularly in Oz, that use real fruit, pack a punch that actually look beautiful in a glass and taste, and they're not clear and relatively mellow, like they pack a punch, they let you know, hey, this is an ether seltzer, and it might be, healthier than certain other beverages. We've still got a little bit higher calorie content than some of the seltzers in the trade, but it's because we're using real fruit. Stuff's got calories, and
it's that
and
fibre that's up behind.
Yeah, and you can drink syrups and stuff if you want and get low calories, but we need to ensure that our stuff has flavour and we can be proud of what it is, and they're everyone that tries them, I think, loves them. So yeah, super stoked on what the guys have been able to do.
Awesome.
And you picked up a classic.
Yeah,
You're going to a classic now. This
is the all-time heavyweight champion.
Yeah.
This is my favorite.
It's our most awarded beer. Having taken out champion beer and stuff.
Hop, skip, and jump.
Yeah. So it's one of our OG West Coast IPAs, and it's been tweaked and massaged, as long as I've been brewing it, which is from the very get-go.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, we just adore this beer, and it's funny, we go through little stages. Like, I think it was about a year and a half ago, I said to George, we're going to cut hop, skip, jump, and move in a different direction with it. And George was like, go fuck. I mean, but no, and like we got a bit of kickback, and before I knew it, like honestly, I swear it was a week later, it started moving and just cranking. Like I don't know what. And that's happened a couple of times. I think with a couple of beers, I'm like, no, it's not performing. I think it's time to cut it. And then the next week, it just starts to crank. And Hop Skip's just been such a consistent beer for us, like moving and selling, and its awards. Have always been amazing. It's just a cracker.
Yeah, last year got a ripper.
West Coast. Yep.
Pretty stoked, I suppose, that one took out Queensland's best beer at the Queensland Beer Awards, also known as the Royal Queensland Food and Wine Show.
Yep.
Is So it's nice, you know. It's pretty cool for a little brewery to pick up a beer. As Queensland's best, I suppose.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's pretty niche, but at the end of the day, it's all brewers and pros that are judging this stuff. So it's like, I found it so funny to tell mates like, oh yeah, this just won, Queensland's best beer, and it's obviously all judged by people that know beer, love craft. So some of my buddies that just drink like basic as lagers are like, man, how did this win Queensland's best beer? Like, I only drink lagers.
That's right.
Well, it's interesting. I'm not necessarily involved in it, but there was a time where you'd come to a party with a slightly different beer, and everyone would be like, "Mate, what is that shit you're
What are you
drinking?
drinking?
Try it."
Yeah.
How have you found that evolve over time?
Yeah, I mean, I think, the way people are spending now is different. Like back, when we were breaking into the market and trying to grow the brand, people were just walking into a bottle shop and buying the cheapest block, is what people have drunk and what they saw their parents drink, It's very classical, macro type stuff. But now, as people connect more and more with the brewing industry, and people see what goes into it and the actual people that are behind it, people no longer go and spend $60 or $50 or whatever it is on a case. They'll spend $50 on a couple of really nice 4-packs of really good beer that people have put their whole lives into making. And that's been amazing, obviously, for us, because that's our space.
Mm-hmm.
But it helps not just us, but every independent brewery that's family owned like us out, because the amount of effort that goes into it, it's lovely to know that people are, not just going for X Gold or something. It's they really care about the beer and the flavour.
Yeah, I think that it's it wasn't that many years ago that, like you say, you'd walk into a spot with someone different and it was just too hard a basket. If you can't drink 50 of them in a session, like, why bother? It's not $30 a box. Why would you do it? But nowadays, I think even like entry level drinkers, everybody sort of has had a pale and probably an IPA, and they know what it's about, and people are pretty open to trying stuff. And we know obviously that everyone's palates are subjective, and people enjoy whatever the hell they enjoy, and that's fantastic. That's what's so exciting about it, and so exciting about our pretty extensive range is we've got plenty of options there. But it's definitely people are keen to try things. Men, women, all ages. They want to try something different because it's another interesting discussion piece. When you lob up to a spot, hey, what are you drinking? Tell me about it. What's the story? People are passionate. It's great.
I love the idea of someone walking into a party with a 4-pack of one of our stupid beers. Let's use Intertwine, the Mandarin Black Truffle, wheat beer Severance. Walking into a party with a 4-pack of Severance, and everyone just going, "What the fuck is that? Why would you do that?" But then everyone going like, "Can I have a taste?
Yeah,
can I try it?" And that's
that's the nice part about I've come from that corporate background where I worked at Carlsberg in Denmark. Big, but you're always making the same thing every day. As opposed to, we're not small, but we're also not absolutely crazy massive. We can keep that agility. We can always, stay creative, stay lean, stay mean. What do we want to put out now?
It's true.
Okay, I come in with this crazy idea, and 2 months later we're putting it into can. Less than 2 months.
Still working on the recipe the day that we're brewing it, that type of stuff.
That is accurate.
Can
you give us an example of one specific beer? And I know one stands out to me that I tried from you guys that was slightly different. Is it the peanut butter porter or peanut butter
stout?
Yeah. And that's become like a fan favorite. We do that every winter. Actually, we're making that today.
Cool.
That's the first batch that we're doing for this winter is today. The first one that really jumps off the page to me is the pilot batch off of our barrel program. So we have Oak and Organisms, our barrel program, and the Sour Brown, where Dave bought some barrels kind of on a whim, a very Dave thing to do.
It is a little bit.
And they were just kind of sitting around for a bit longer than I think we would have liked. And I think I just kind of walked in one day, I said, screw this. I'm tired of looking at these things empty.
Yeah.
This is valuable time that we're burning here. Let's just do a sour brown. And so we just said, screw it. Yep, we'll do that. And then within, the next week, it was being put into tank, put into barrel.
Honestly, I'd never really had a sour brown up until then, and so when George said, we're doing a sour brown, I was like, okay, cool. So I went and bought a whole heap of the style. The Wood Brewing is the classical style, but the sour browns, and I wasn't super impressed with what I tasted, and I actually came back to George, and George went out and got me a good one. And as soon as I tasted it, I was like, well, that is spectacular. That is the complete opposite of all the ones I've managed to find so far. And the beer that came out was spectacular. It was such a good beer.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. I'm a lolly addict, and it just tastes like those sour Coke bottles. I am trying to cut back, but it was just it was such an impressive beer. Like really, like liquid wise, we've evolved the branding on that piece as well, that little project.
Yeah.
And I reckon it kind of like tears me up, because I reckon if we had the branding that we've got now on the Oaks and Organisms series, which is a lot more relevant to us, beer, the sour brown, would have got mental. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but it's sick. It's dark. They look really dark now, and if that beer had that branding on it, I think more people would have got to enjoy that product. But it still went really well, which is cool. Sick beer.
Well,
and that.
Oh, sorry.
Well, that peanut butter stout that you were talking about before, I remember, like, before I even really knew these dudes at all, I remember so many people used to talk about the peanut butter stout creature of the night. We'd brew it differently to, how a couple of other people that started brewing them after us do them. It's still vegan and clean.
No lactose.
No lactose.
Also, we've always tried to steer clear of lactose. Admittedly, we've given in lately, but we don't talk about that.
But it's beautiful. And it was like cult statusy, so like underground cult statusy, like people that were into that peanut butter stout creature of the night would just love it, and people still love it, and it's great. It's a ripper beer. I'm not going to say it's for me. I can have one of them. One of them. But geez, it's good. How many can you drink though?
I can get around them.
Yeah, that's not a question we should answer on a public
service.
I'm thinking back to peanut butter stout for me. First time I had it was at the Milton venue with wings.
Oh, nice.
And I just, so good.
Yeah.
And actually, my girlfriend and I had come here to this venue, and you had a wing truck that was probably one of the best wings we'd ever tried. We're like, oh my, how do we find this wing truck? But again, that that massive flavour of that stout was great with like a buffalo wings that had a similarly big flavour.
I'm going to have to give it a run. I'm keen.
Yeah.
And George, coming from Ontario, knowing that there's a fairly strong craft beer following there, or at least a lot of options of beers, and then moving to Denmark and then coming to Brisbane, how do you find the selection here?
Oh, totally different. Man, so in Canada, I was, pretty much just a Molson drinker.
Mm-hmm.
You could always find me with a 2-4 Canadian.
Yeah.
For the Canadians listening there. A carton of Canadian for the Australians listening.
A slab.
Yep. I didn't know what you were talking about.
I was homebrewing at the time, but wasn't super into the crafty stuff. My sister was like buying me a beer or two here from the LCBO. It wasn't until I actually moved to Denmark. I had a couple friends that worked for McKellar, just a bunch of that sort of stuff. But the Danish beer market or the European beer market was a little bit different. Like Denmark, it's dark and cold and raining 8 months out of the year. By the time the summer rolls around, you're just like, thank God. So the beers kind of reflect that, where they're just a bit more heavier, a bit more boozy. They don't like to play around as much with like different flavors and stuff like that. While like down in Australia, it's a lot more fun. It's more exciting. The sun's out. Let's go to the beach. Let's get some interesting beers going on there. Let's just have fun with it. Screw it. Let's not take it too seriously. Yeah. So like, I had never even heard of a mid-strength until I moved down here, for example. It's just
Canada? They don't have them in Canada?
Our mid-strengths are Coors Light.
I think even in America, right? You don't have to label it as alcoholic if it's under 5%.
No.
You don't have to put the alcohol percentage on it.
It's like
There's some
0.5, I think.
Sure.
Yeah.
But I think even
Might be wrong there.
I remember when I moved
sounds like that.
when I moved to Toronto, everything's bought through the LCBO, and the really cool thing at that time was that there's no real difference in price per can if you buy it as a single or you buy it in a carton.
Yeah.
So I
of
went
course,
the
yeah.
first weekend I got there. I went to the cottage with like 24 different cans of beer that I'd never tried before.
Yeah.
But that were all reasonably priced. I was like, oh, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
But it was cool now coming back to Australia, seeing the craft beer scene really pick up and having those options. Obviously, pricing's sort of different with the way that liquor shops work.
Yep.
But still having that opportunity to try so many different beers from so many different breweries that are both from local and abroad, it's been cool to watch.
Yeah.
I remember seeing that LCBO sort of set up when I was there, but also when I lived in Sweden. But unfortunately, most of the beers when I was in Sweden were just like basic lagers. So
Yep.
you
Yeah.
get a mixed box of lagers.
Yep.
Not that exciting. But yeah, interesting setup.
Yeah. I mean, and some people are like killing it in support, not just for local independent, but for international. Like my beer dealer, Craft, some of those really solid bottle shops who go to great extremes to curate their selection. And I know Matt spends hours and hours just looking for the best beers he can find. And so I'm pretty much banned from my beer dealer, especially after a few beers. I think
Dave's too generous as well.
I think after Royal Queensland Beer Awards last year,
I will
that's when I
never
banned
financially
myself. I think it was
recover from
I don't think we ever have. Yeah. I remember looking at my the tab the next morning and go, "Oh, damn!" But there's just so many great beers from Australia, New Zealand, and then international.
Yeah.
In that bottle shop, I just can't help myself. I just go in
that's
there.
the
I'm
beautiful
like,
part about that. It's
Exactly.
just a cozy little basement, and it's like, oh my god, these fritters are great.
yeah.
Fortunately for us, I suppose, though, like since I was like my beer dealer and a bunch of other sort of craft, some of those sort of pivotal guys that started off and sort of really wanted to mix up retail in Oz, a lot of people have started to evolve.
Absolutely.
And products like ours become more and more relevant. We're really lucky to work with a lot of really great groups, not just in the indies, but also shout out, I guess, to the majors for what they do for us.
Absolutely.
So, a lot of good people out there, and we're really grateful.
Yep,
And just
definitely.
based on that, if you're thinking about clock off on a Friday or maybe a bit of a party on a Saturday night, what would you drink and where would you buy it from if it was Aether?
Ooh.
That's a good question.
Yeah. So it has to be an Aether drink?
You can drink whatever you want. Yeah.
So I drink a lot of Aether beer. So honestly, if I'm going to a party, I'm probably going to get something different. Like, I adore our beers, but we sample them most days and stuff. It's like, really?
I'm taking this.
Yeah.
Yep.
Top, skip, jump.
If I'm at a Saturday party, I'm taking this.
Really? Nice. Yeah. Honestly, I'll probably go out and buy like a European Gose in a giant bottle, like some giant, stupid, extravagant thing, or some really solid sours, some really nice like horsey, goaty, bretty type sours, stuff that we don't make.
Yep.
Something stupid.
Yeah, fill the gaps. That's fair.
Yeah, that's right.
Man, I go through so many phases with our beers because I drink a ton of them.
Yeah.
And I mean, like a lot of people say, I guess it's all subjective to my mood and what's happening. But I think for me, witching is mental. Pit stop pale ale.
It's not bad, actually.
That would be
Way
the
too-
Friday knockoff.
Honestly, unsung hero.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
And
not my
our
favorite Friday
LFA.
knockoff beers.
Oh, hey man.
LFA,
LFA is nuts. Like I'd say, a lot of my peers, a lot of my mates, otherwise still love lagers, and I do as well. There's a time and a place. And when we started, drumming up the concept for El Jefe, let's do something like ultra smashable, the right ABV, the right price, but make it a little bit different. If we're going to do a Mexican lager, guys were like, hell yeah, let's chuck some agave in there, a little bit of corns, make it a little bit sweet, a little bit different. I drink a lot of that. I love the idea, because some of our beers, a little bit pricier. Some of it, some of it's pretty affordable as well. But love the idea of someone picking up, and they do, a case of El Jefe, and again, responsible service of alcohol, but smashing it. Getting involved and just going, hell yeah, like I can drink that like I drink my Tui's or whatever the hell they're on. So.
I think it's like the first beer we've ever released that you could actually classify as a fridge filler. Like something you can drink all the time and something that, can comfortably sit in the fridge and you go back to it day after day. Again, responsible service of alcohol, and enjoy it. And it's clean, it's crisp, it's sharp, it's got
so
flavor and character.
When we released that, because we were a little bit nervous that, oh man, like Mexican lager, pretty light. I hope our real crafty gang aren't just going to be like, oh, that's basic, like it's not Aether. But I think we've got pretty damn good feedback, not just on the artwork, and we were stoked to pick up 3 in the Gab's can designs last year for that bad boy. But just it was complex enough for people that wanted to craft lager and something different that no one was really doing. I think maybe taco, but that's completely different from Two Birds down south.
Yep.
But it's just a completely different style, I suppose. So yeah, complex enough for people that wanted some flavour, and also smashable enough and approachable for people that were just used to drinking, macro lager or whatever it was. Yeah. Stoked.
And heading into winter, can someone talk us through the porter or the chocolate, the peanut butter stout, just in terms of what they can expect and if trying something, and maybe that's a different style for them?
Yeah, I mean, I'll give the porter a run. So porter's pretty old school as well. Porter was one of the OGs that we messed with back in the lab again in Ashgrove, and again, it has developed and it's come a long way, but it's been consistent. It's been with us for forever. But that's the Queensland. It used to be Queensland Vanilla, but Queensland Vanilla is incredibly hard to get a hold of again now, especially in the volumes that we use it. So we use vanilla beans that have been soaked in spice rum for a period, and then that gets added into late into ferment and aging. So it's a really kind of solid, clean porter base, a little bit lighter than what I think a lot of people are looking for when you look for a porter or a stout. But it's just trying to give this amazing complexity to a beer that otherwise is reasonably simplistic, and porters are quite simple.
And we try to layer a bit of hop into that. Obviously, it's not a hop-forward beer at all, but we do add a bit of English hops at different stages of the brew process and the fermentation, just to give it that little bit of back palate kind of flavoring to it, just so the vanilla and the spiced rum aren't the only things you're getting out of it. That's one of the real challenges of actually making a recipe for brewing. You don't want to make it too simple. You want to give the credit to our consumer where they're clever and they'll figure out what we're doing. You want to give them that respect and, give them that flavor that they deserve, that they're paying for. And so, moving into peanut butter stout, we try to go kind of counter what everybody else does for their peanut butter stouts. A lot of them are very light bodied and full of lactose, so super sweet, and then they just put some pretty basic peanut butter flavoring into it. What we try to aim for is quite a full bodied, high ABV stout base. We try to make it quite dry as well, and then we'll add, I'll say, a bunch of different types of peanut butter to that. I don't want to give away too much. But we try to make it a little bit more dry, and we try to make it more, instead of thinking about specifically peanut butter, it's like if you were to take a spoon of peanut butter, put that on top of peanut brittle, and then put that on top of a square of dark chocolate. That's what we try to make peanut butter stout as. And again, it's when we were sitting down and nailing out that process of how are we going to brew this, how are we going to ferment this, which are two very different things. It's how do we make this as approachable but complex and layered and full of flavor as what we can make it. so we just try to go forward with that every year. The changes, because it's a limited release beer for just the wintertime, there are a few more challenges into making it than, say, a beer that we release year round. Things do change. Even like the water profile from what we get off of the city changes, and that changes the way that we have to brew things. So it's just about being very mindful about how we're working with things on limited releases and making sure that we're putting out the best things that we can. Yeah.
I think for me, when it comes to that porter, spice rum porter, that's unbelievable. That's a year-round drink. And it's interesting, the demographics to drink that one. Like, even just in my circle, like, more women, that love that beer than the dudes I know. Like, everyone can drink it, and all year round, summer as well. Like, if it's there, it's so smashable. I love it, and there's probably alternatives in the market. Not that I claim to have drunk every porter out there, but there's alternatives in the market that are probably a little bit lighter and a bit too watery for my taste buds. And then there's the bigger, chunkier ones, and ours lives in a really magical space. And from what I can see, all by itself. And that peanut butter stout, I guess we've spoken about it, but it's a very special beer. Yeah, rippers.
Awesome. And is there anything else you'd like to cover before we wrap up?
I'm good. I've spoken enough for the next 2 years.
Dave hates talking. Like, he, so I don't know how George feels. I think he's 50-50, but I swear, like, these guys are so smart. Like, I'm a brainless idiot, but I talk a lot. Love talking, love communicating with people. But when I see these guys talk, when I hear them talk, and when I see them engage with the public, which I wish they could do more or wanted to do more, it's amazing. The first time I saw Dave probably really publicly speak at, which was just at Gab Sunny Coast, what was that, like a couple of years ago or something like that. I guess there's a bunch of brewers or different sort of folks from the industry there, and it was like one of those open forum type things, but there was a topic, maybe you're talking about sours or something.
I think we might have talking seltzers no, it was sours. Yeah, it was definitely sours. A rise of sours. Yep.
I was meant to be working the bar, but I was just sort of lurking about, Anyway, and just the way Dave speaks, I swear it sounds stupid, but I almost had a little tear in my eye. I was like so proud, and then the engagement after that that speech, like everyone was pinging questions, and most of them were going to Dave, and if somebody didn't want to answer something, Dave was answering it anyway, and like it's just people want to hear him talk, and we've got Dave. He's helped us out at a bunch of different spots, whether it was last minute at archive when someone else pulled out, and Dave's packed up and gone along, and people are just so keen to hear him talk. It's amazing. It's amazing.
Makes me sick.
And these are smart dudes. I learn so much from George and Dave every single day, and the whole team. To be fair,
the whole team.
Like we've got. It's a small team, but it's getting really good. Everyone from our sales guys, they're amazing. Benny and Dave, Emma in marketing and socials, like our ops team, Emma and Geordie in accounts, like they're just. Geez, they make life good. And then the brew team is exceptional. Yeah. All absolute champs. But
we all just weave together, man.
Yeah.
Oh, man. But it's funny, like being such a small team and like in relative close proximity or whatever, we've got really good relationships, but it always feels like it's a bit too far apart as well. You know? Like, so we're stoked to... we got one of our family barbecues the Sava after this, which is good because we can all get tucked in a few beers.
Just gonna hang out together.
Yeah, some good things going on. But we've got so many good partners as well. We're so lucky in this industry.
And let's say you're wrapping up this podcast and you're thinking, I better go buy an Aether 4-pack. North side of Brisbane, south side of Brisbane, anywhere else. What sort of stores are you looking for, and where can you find it?
Oh man, to be fair, we're pretty lucky to do some good work with the chains, so you can find us in Nightstand Murphy's and in the BWS stores. Different selection for different stores, to be fair, so yell out if you want to get specific, or check the website. But then also obviously the guys at Coles, their Liquorland stores, we've got a bunch of those, more so in close proximity, but a lot of first choice. But the indie trade is if we're talking about retail, definitely who supports us. There's so many good groups around, and banners, you know, like that support us, whether it's Midge's stores or the Black Sheeps and the Urban Cellars, whether it's a Red Cape group, whether it's Harry Brown's, you know, Dave up at Bracken Bridge. It's everywhere, to be
Sounds
fair.
like it, yeah.
But there's still plenty of Star Liquor. They're so good to us, you know, like, and then even interstate, yeah, there's so many good cats out there that I wish you cared to hear about. But keep moving. And all I'll say is, but there's still plenty of gaps out there in the trade, you know, like, so, you know, hit us up or hit up your local bottle shop and ask for Aether, you know, it helps us out, you know, and, you know, let me know and I'll give you a high five. You know?
Perfect. All right, well, guys, thanks very much for your time.
Thank you so
Appreciate
much.
it.
And,
Appreciate it.
looking forward to tucking into plenty more Aether beers.
Absolutely.
shortly.
Beauty.